Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are very fortunate to have this gentleman on. He set a record that, in all honesty, we're not really sure if it'll ever be attained again. He won the same event at the World Series back to back to back, 3 consecutive times. Now, it was not 3 consecutive years just because of COVID, not his fault. But 2018, 2019, and 2021, and this isn't just any event, folks. This is the $10,000 Dealer's Choice Championship. This year was a star-studded field with 93 entrants. In 2019, had 122. 2018 had 111. This year, he took down the event heads up with Phil Hellmuth, who was going for his 17th bracelet after winning his 16th just a few days earlier. But Adam Friedman took it down for almost $250,000. Welcome to the show, Adam Friedman. Adam, thanks for joining us here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
It is, really an incredible story for what you have done. Is your 4th bracelet overall. You won a 7-card stud high-low event previously in 2012. But now you take these 3 bracelets down. Did you know that this was potentially history here if you were able to take this down for the 3rd year in a row?
I knew after I won the repeat in 2019, I knew that, or I guess I found out, the repeat had only been done 7, 8, or 9 times total. Right. So, and I knew Johnny Chan had been the closest person to do the 3-peat at 87, 88, 89 for the main event. And obviously we know who won 1989 because he reminds us of it, well, every day. I'd known the history of it. No one had been able to do that. It was a goal I'd set out to hopefully try to attain. I know how unlikely it is to win these tournaments. Right. Even if you are one of the better players in the tournament, it's you still need so many things to go your way. You need the cards to run well in the right spots. You've got to win a certain kind of coin flip-ish type hands in the limit games when they come up. You need to get a few of your free roll hands over, and just when I needed to, the cards went my way for the 3rd consecutive time.
Right, and like you said, the storyline was being written, and in the waiting. Phil Hellmuth denies Johnny Chan 3rd year in a row, and he could have done it to you as well in the sense of denying a 10K championship 3rd year or 3rd time in a row. But you obviously prevented that storyline from being written and took it down. An incredible feat for such a very, very difficult event in the sense that there are 20 games. And for the Dealer's Choice, you choose which game it is. It's 6-handed. And obviously for a 10K, like all the 10Ks, pretty much the best players in the world. So an incredible event to win 3 times in a row. We definitely want to get to that. I want to talk about some strategies. Want to talk about why you feel you're so successful in it. But before we do that, let's really let the listeners get to know you a little bit better. You're probably one of the lesser known 4-time bracelet winners, if there is such a thing. I'm not really sure if there are lesser known 4-time bracelet winners, but I'd love for my listeners to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us a little bit how you got started in the world of poker. How'd you start playing poker?
I'd like to say it's some original story no one's ever said before, but that would be a complete bold-faced lie. Saw rounders, loved rounders. In college, the WSOP, the World Poker Tour, premiered, and started playing with friends in college. For pennies, dollars. It's been so long. I don't even remember what we played for now, to be honest. Right. Part of me has in my mind, I think we used to play for drinks, and maybe it was money, but maybe I won the money, so I paid for the drinks. I honestly don't even remember now. It's been It was like another lifetime ago, or maybe 2 lifetimes ago at this point. But after college, I took a year off because I wasn't ready to become an adult yet. And I guess that's probably still true to some extent 20 years later. But yeah, I took a year off, and I qualified for the main event, the World Series in 2005, and I made my mind afterwards. After the '05 main event, I was going to get a real job, and fortunately, I made a deep run that year. The year you went deep as well,
Right.
and so all my friends said, just take another year off, see what you can do with this, because if you don't do it now, you're never going to be able to do it. So I took another year off, and over the next year, things were going really well. I was doing pretty well in cash games, and then I won a couple tournaments, and I was like, well, I mean, life isn't too bad right now. I'm 24. I'm partying a lot, when partying meant more to me. Going out, I pulled the alarm clock out of my wall, which again, I know it's strange to people nowadays because people are like, "What's an alarm clock?"
Right.
But trust me, when alarm clocks were very prevalent 15 years ago, the day you could unplug the alarm clock out of your wall is an exhilarating moment. I mean, I still joke with people, that's one of the top 10 days of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, never having to see the clock and like, wow, this is great. I do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'm in a good point, relatively speaking, financially at 24 compared to most people.
Right.
So yeah, that was a great moment when that happened. But yeah, and then from there, it's basically a snap of the fingers, and 15 years later, here we are.
You, like you said, 2005, you had a really nice run, finishing in 43rd, almost $250,000. And then over the next few years, you still are making really big marks. In 2006, winning a Midwest Regional Poker Championship in Elizabeth, Indiana, at the Horseshoe Southern Indiana for $150,000, taking down a Midwest Regional there as well for another $100,000. You also, after winning your bracelet, you also take a Heartland Poker Tour event down in 2013. Tell me a little bit of how the transition went from No Limit, because that's a lot of what you were playing at the beginning, and obviously with the moneymaker effect, that's what everyone was doing. But now you transition over to mixed games, because obviously you have to be incredibly proficient in mixed games to play dealer's choice, because the majority of the games are mixed games there. It's very few big bet games in that dealer's choice.
Yeah, so I guess you can say I predominantly come from a limit hold'em background. Limit hold'em was the drug of choice, so to speak.
Right, way back then. Right.
Yeah. So everybody in Columbus, Ohio, was playing limit hold'em, and I basically went from playing 3-6 to 10-20 in no time at all. And eventually, after the '05 main event, when I started coming out to LA to play cash games, it felt like it literally was 2 minutes from the time I was going from 10-20 to 100, 200 mixed, not mixed games, limit hold'em. And around this time, I was also playing some no limit hold'em. So, it's amazing as the time flies. You don't remember every detail of it anymore. But more, I'd say from 2006 to 2010, I was predominantly playing either 2040, 2050 no limit hold'em, either Bellagio or Commerce, or 1-200 limit hold'em with occasional 2-400 when that ran. But eventually, over the years, hold'em just started becoming really boring to me. It was like 2 cards, and I'm seeing some of these other games going around there. I'm seeing all these mixed games and stud games. I'm like, maybe it'd be worth just to randomly experiment. Let me play 1 or 2 of these other games. So I started playing 1-200 7-card stud high, and I'd played very little stud in my life. But I was having a ball. I was having a great time learning. It was cutting down my hourly, but I was really enjoying playing poker all over again, because like I said, I was starting to get really bored with hold'em in general.
Right.
And finding stuff, I was like, oh my God, it's like this revelation. Like, oh, I like this game a lot. And then I started figuring out all the nuances, all these really cool things you can do, these really interesting bluffs you can do against certain individuals, and just knowing that. But it can be an incredibly frustrating, tilting game when you're dealt split aces, maybe 10 a dozen times over the course of a 6, 8, 20, 12, 24, 48-hour session, or 20, you get it out 20 times and you never win with them, which is an incredibly tilting feeling. Where you want to rip up the deck. Not that I ever did that. Ripped up a few cards, or ever got angry, because everyone knows I was a calm individual back in my 20s. But yeah, I just I don't know. I fell in love with 7-card stud high. I saw some really cool intricacies in that game that you just didn't see in other games, and When online poker I was around before Black Friday over 10 years ago now. It's amazing.
Amazing.
I dabbled in Deuce 7 triple draw. I had a good feel for how to play
Oh.
triple draw back then, and I'm sure I played some of the other games back then. I don't even remember all the details anymore. It seems like a blur now
Right,
in
right.
my life. But as the years went on, eventually the stud high game in LA started. A lot of people who were winners or losers, marginal players, they started dropping out because that's just inevitably what poker is. I mean, eventually, between the rake and players not being as good as they think they are, or they're not bankrolled sufficiently for games. The stud game eventually died out, and eventually I was either going to have to go back to Hold'em, which was never going to happen, or I was going to have to go progress towards the mixed games. And I've always played a lot of the mixed games during the terms of the World Series. I thought I was much better than I was, which was definitely not the case. I mean, I was still plus EV in just about every event I played, but nowhere near to the extent that I thought I was at the time when I was younger.
Right.
But eventually, I just started putting hours nonstop, playing players who were much better than me. But by doing that, it made me a much tougher player long term, and just eventually just started learning all the games over the years. And yeah, that's more or less where I'm at right now.
So, you said you started playing stud. Incredible that you're talking about you're playing triple draw, because obviously two complete, like I would have thought if you normally someone would say something like, well, I played stud and so I moved over to Raz or sudden stud high low, but to say that I also expand over to triple draw, those are really two good versions to learn if you're going to be expanding out and playing like a dealer's choice, because now you're touching a lot of different games. When you're playing triple draw, now you're also looking at like ace to five, low ball, triple draw, Badugi, Badesi, Badusi, all those games. And then, of course, all the stud games, stud high, 8 or better, stud high, regular, et cetera, et cetera. So what are some of the games that have come along that you kind of had to learn just for this, like a big O or a Badugi or something along those lines? What are some of those games?
Two of the games that are very prevalent for the dealer's choice that I think you need to be really good at. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult to win. Are the split pot draw games, Badusi and Badesi.
Right.
If people don't understand, I mean, if you don't understand the real basics in terms of what the goals are of that game, you're just drawing dead from the minute the cards are dealt. It's fine. I've played as much Badusi or Badesi as anybody in the last several years. Between the cash games I played between Vegas and Los Angeles. I think those are two games I think that are very important to play. Initially, when the dealer's choice came out in 2015, when Big O was called, I had no clue what I was doing. But unfortunately, some of the other players didn't know what they were doing either. So that was very fortunate on my part. Again, pot limit triple draw was never called at the beginning, but people are calling it a little bit more now. So I've had to learn. I've had to play the game a little bit more, and it's a pretty volatile game that a lot of people, for the most part, are trying to avoid because chips can just get in. Like, oh my god, I'm all in. How'd that happen?
Right.
And almost all the better players are trying to avoid that by picking that game. I think the players who are predominantly big bet players or who are pretty weak in a lot of the games should consider choosing volatile games and try to get as many, relatively speaking, 50-50s as possible, and just hope that variance falls their way in those spots. But yeah, it's 20 games, and you have to have a very wide range knowledge in flops, draws, studs, pot limit, no limit, limit, and fortunately, it's some of the games that I've been that I was maybe weaker in years prior. I could always end up playing in bigger games out west in order to get better, and I could always ask people whose knowledge of the games that I truly respect. And I'm fortunate enough I'm good friends with a lot of the better players in the poker world. But yeah, I've never been afraid to ask. I've always been able to put my ego aside in spite of what some people think. And if I don't know, I tend to ask the people I know, who I consider some of the best in the world in their respective game or two or three games.
Yeah, obviously always a good thing to be able to, like you said, put your ego aside and ask the questions about games that you're not 100% sure on. You touched upon it a second ago, the two games that you really, really need to understand, the split pot draw games, Badusi and Badesi. Let's touch a little bit on those really quickly Badusi and Badesi are split pot games where half goes to the Badugi, which is, by the way, you get dealt 5 cards in this, not 4, which is Badugi.
Correct.
Badugi is your best 4 non-suited cards. So ace, 2, 3, 4, all rainbow for a no limit hold'em person. And then Badesi is that plus, sorry, Badugi takes half.
Mhm.
Ace through 5 takes the other half.
And Badesi, correct.
Badusi is Badugi is half, and deuce through 7, low ball takes the other half.
That's correct.
So fairly different games in that sense, because obviously an ace in Badusi is bad for the deuce to 7, but am I correct to say it's good for the Badugi?
Correct. Yeah. Like I said, well, like when you're playing, the key difference between Badusi and Badesi is similar to deuce 7 triple draw and ace to 5. The ace is key in Badase, and an ace is high in Baduse, so you don't want to have aces. Split pot draw games are basically it's a disguise. It's sort of like baseball. Baseball in reality is a pitcher and 8 ornaments that are playing. It's just a pitcher. The hitters don't matter in baseball. Similar in Badusi and Badesi, it's a split pot game. It's disguised as a split pot game, but in reality, it's Badugi, because your goal is to make a Badugi first, followed by your triple draw hand. The people that are playing 4-card wheel hands and triple draw, but maybe they have like 2 hearts and 2 diamonds, well, they're already drawn dead to half the pot.
Right.
So those are, and people over the years that have gone weaker, I've seen them they're starting to get better, which is not good for me personally. But there's some very interesting aspects to those games, which you don't get until you start playing thousands and thousands of hands, that even if I tried describing certain things, it wouldn't do it anywhere near justice. So I think even attempting to do that wouldn't be ideal for this medium. But I would just tell people, just go out there and just start playing all these games. There's some fascinating things that you can learn about yourself in all these games. And what's beautiful about all these games and the mix, and even games that aren't even in the dealer's choice. And I've told when people said, how many games do you like in the dealer's choice? I said, selfishly, I'd love to have about 30 games. But in reality, that'd be really bad for the event, because I think once you start adding more games, because the majority of the games would be limit, I think it would scare more people off from playing, and people who are friendly playing, they're like, oh, I don't want to learn these other games like Drama High, Deuce to 7, or Drama High, Double Board, Omaha, Pot Limit, no limit or limit, Raz Doogie, Raz Daisy. Some of these other games, people are like, is he speaking English?
Right.
So yeah, I think 20 is the right mix in terms of what we're doing, in terms of trying to get the right balance of players. And like I said, the one thing I promise everyone is, when you start playing all these games, whether it's Badusi, Badesi, stud games, draw games, you'll find certain things in these games which you can apply to your no limit hold'em game, like just concepts you've never thought of before. Something in no limit hold'em can help your stud your better game. Something in Deuce 7 triple draw, it can help you in pot limit. It can help you in pot limit Omaha 8 or better. Just things you just don't think of that, and all of a sudden, while you're just expanding your mind and how all these games play. And it really does help your both any individual game and your overall game as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said my home game is basically a variation of horse, 10-20 horse game, and I've been doing that for about 20 years. We don't play no limit at all. And I will say there are so many times where my brain is thinking, even though I'm playing 8 or better stud, or Omaha 8 or better, or deuce to 7 or whatever, but you're really thinking, going, oh, didn't think about that. Wait a second, boy, let me see how I can incorporate that. At the very least, your mind is always thinking about poker. And I agree with you. It definitely is an interesting way to keep expanding your mind all the time with regards to it. Why do you feel that you are so successful in the dealer's choice? What makes you so successful in this?
I think there have been a few. I mean, obviously, in terms of winning 3, that's just flukish. I mean, we all know that. I mean, anybody who's been around that knows how ridiculously freakish that is. What I've just accomplished. I think part of the reason why I've been good in dealer's choice over the years is, like I said, I've really been able to put my ego aside, and I've really tried to get good at all the games. I know I'm great at a select few, but I really try to pride myself on not being awful at any of them. I mean, we're all going to have a week. I think we're all going to have a weaker game or two in the mix. It doesn't matter whether it's a 20 game mix or when you're playing a cash game. If it's anywhere from 5 games to 25 or 30 games, we're all going to have a weaker game or two in the rotation. But you just want to, in the games you're maybe not as experienced or you're not as good as the other players at the table. I tend to play much tighter.
Right.
I just bide my time. I'm not trying to force the issue in games that I don't need to. And the games where I know I'm the best player or second best player in the 6 players, I'm not forced. I for the most part, I'm not trying to force the issue. Although we'll talk later on my final table how that almost cost me actually winning this tournament this time. But yeah, I've really put in a lot of work in a lot of games like Big O that I really never played before. We played out west in the rotation, and I went from where I thought I was really awful at the game to where it's definitely in my top, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7 games if I were to rank. I've never thought about ranking my 20 games in order.
Yeah. And when you say you go out west, what I'm impressed about is that you never moved out to LA or never moved out to Vegas. You stayed in your home state of Ohio, and you go out and just make several trips during the year and go and play in LA, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, pre-COVID years, I probably spent anywhere from 3 to 4 months on average out in LA. I come to the World Series for 6, 7, or looks like 8 weeks this year for the World Series of Poker. And I've never gone to Vegas as much as LA. I don't know if it's probably because I think there's a few more options for me to play with mixed games out in LA, and I love being in LA personally more just because it's more like a 9 to 5 job out there. The mixed games go from Monday through Friday, and you have weekends off, and I'm really enjoying my life out in LA right now. I've got a couple of really good buddies out in LA, and then when I do have an Airbnb, usually I'm staying in Hermosa or Manhattan Beach. So when the games aren't going on, usually I park my car on a Thursday or Friday night, depending if there's a game on Friday, and then I don't drive my car until Monday morning. I walk around everywhere to restaurants and just do whatever. It's not a bad life out there.
I love it.
In terms of, and I'm just hanging out by the beach for a couple of days. But in terms of buying a place, I don't have LA money.
Right.
If I were to move out there, I'll be honest, I want to wake up to looking at the Pacific Ocean. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm ever going to get that kind of money, but one can hope.
Right.
I guess they start adding a dealer's choice tournament every week. The way I do. Maybe I got a shot one day.
There you go. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more with Adam about his historic 3rd WSOP 10K Dealer's Choice title in a row when we return here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.